All right, guys, we got an awesome episode for you tonight. But before we get into it, I got to thank my partners that make this show possible. The first one being ASIO Gear. They got their new Raptor pattern out. Looks awesome. And right now is an important time to be in the stand, but it's also kind of cold sometimes. So if you don't have real good cold weather gear, ASIO Gear is a great option for good cold weather gear. It'll keep you in the stand nice and warm for when you need it the most. Also has that lifetime warranty. The code ECHO15 saves you 15% off anything on ASIO's website. So if you need some new quality hunting clothes with good camo pattern, go over to ASIO Gear. And then if you need some mobile hunting gear, which I pretty much only mobile hunt now, go over to Latitude Outdoors. They got stands, they got saddle platforms, saddles, sticks, the Ranger 22, Ranger 33 pack. They're my favorite packs that I've ever used as far as a whitetail pack. And then if you use the code BTE, you get 10% off anything on their website. And then if you need some stealth strips to silence your gear, make sure your gear's taped up, silence, not going to make a noise, go over to stealthoutdoors.com. And the code BTE10 will save you 10% off anything on their website. They also have the Hunting Beast collection of apparel over there on their website. So go over to stealthoutdoors.com. BTE10 will save you 10% off. And then if you need some new broadheads, go check out Razor Broadheads. Those guys up in Michigan, Shane and Dave, they're buddies of mine. They make great quality broadheads, good single bevels for any weight you really need. They also have a double bevel 150 grain broadhead that I really, really enjoy. I just killed a big buck the other night with one of their broadheads. Thing ran 40 yards and died, just like it's supposed to. So visit razorbroadheads.com. BTE saves you 20% off, which is a crazy deal. And then if you need some new optics, make sure you go over to hawkeoptics.com and check out what they have going on. I've been super impressed with everything they have. For the price, it's hard to beat those optics. We all are on budgets. We all don't have some unlimited amount of money to spend on hunting, most of us at least. And Hawke Optics offers you some really good optics for the price. And then if you use code BTE, you get 15% off. They also have a lot of dealers around. Acme over here in Seymour, Indiana supplies them. And then finally, I want to shout out Bass and Bucks on here up there in Wabash, Indiana. Josh Butcher, buddy of mine, helped me out with a bow when I needed one this year. And I wanted to get in here and shout out Bass and Bucks. If you guys aren't familiar with Bass and Bucks, it's, I believe, one of the largest archery shops in the Midwest here. If you're in northern Indiana, around Wabash, Indiana, it's a great place to go and get your bow worked on, mingle around in there. They have ASIO gear in stock up there, which I think they're the only dealer that carries ASIO gear. If you need your bow worked on, it's hard to find a good place to work on it. Bass and Bucks is your go-to for getting your bow worked on. All right, everybody, let's get into the episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. We got the man that's broke the internet this week, Cody Huhn. Cody killed a gigantic public land Iowa buck, and there's quite the story behind it. So we thought we'd get on here and talk about it this evening. How's it going, man?
Going great. Riding the high right now. I feel unreal. Like it doesn't feel real at all. Cloud nine. I just can't even believe it. Every time I wake up or I do something, I forget, and then all of a sudden I come back to it. I'm just like, did that happen?
Did that happen?
Is it real? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm in the same boat right now. It's like I killed a big deer last night. It's just every time it takes a while.
And that's a stud too, especially with the trad bow. That is a feat. Yeah. That's hard to do.
Yeah. But we're not talking about that now. We're talking about your giant one. So, well, first of all, Cody, just tell everybody your Facebook page and your YouTube and all that, so they're familiar with that before we start.
Yep. So my name's Cody Huhn, and I run Public Land Whitetails, which is on Facebook, YouTube. We have a page on Facebook. It's about 40,000 followers, and then we have a group where you can post your own stories, your own hunts, your own public land adventures. Everything there. You can also follow me on Instagram just at Cody Huhn. That's all my social media right there. And Yeah, so hopefully the YouTube does a little
Yeah.
better because there's only about 3,000
Yeah, there you
followers.
go. There you
I'm
go.
not even monetized on YouTube. Not that that matters, but they won't even give me any money for anything. So it'd be nice to get a couple
That's
more subscribers out there to actually enjoy that content for the amount of hours
yeah.
I put in editing.
Well, this story you're getting ready to hear is a good reason to go over and subscribe to Cody on YouTube. And I'll put all your stuff in the description of the podcast here. Anyway, okay. Um, so let's start with this buck. Let's start first of all. I'll use it on the thumbnail of this video, but start with like where did it all start with? First of all, what did the thing score? So everybody knows roughly.
So rough green score 206 and a quarter. So I'm sure it's gonna dry a bit,
Nice.
after the 60 days, and not it was a rough score, but it was we used proper tape and everything, so it's for sure and over 200 on public.
Yeah. It's a giant, man. It's a giant. All right. I'm sure this is going to be a long story, so let's start. Let's start where. Let's start from the beginning of this buck and how you ended up with it in your hands.
Yeah, so probably sometime just before June, I had a buddy of mine, like an associate, I would say, just tell me a rumor that he heard through somebody he worked with, that guy heard of a friend telling a story about an associate of his that coyote hunts. This is no joke. It was a friend of a friend of a friend who apparently this other guy coyote hunted, I know, but the story was that this guy coyote hunts and he does a lot of night hunting, day hunting. I mean, he's a big predator guy. That is his thing. He's obsessed with predator hunting as we are with whitetails. So he's on that end of the spectrum, with hunting these
Got
predators.
it.
And so the story was that the previous season he had seen a buck that he thought might go 200, and he gave out that information to a lot of his buddies and all whatnot, and apparently nobody could find him or just didn't believe him or something. But I didn't hear it. The rumor was around this specific town, this area, there was the coyote hunter that said, hey, there's a probably 200-inch buck in this area, and that's all I had to go off of. And I've been told rumors before, and just the year previously, I got told there was a 200 in this one area, and I went in there and I dumped a ton of cameras, I dedicated a ton of time, and come to find out, like, it was just before late muzzleloader season. I had shot my nice buck 2 years ago out in Iowa, and I kept looking for that potential 200 for late muzz. Come to find out, somebody found the 200 locked up with a 140. It was a 170. It had like a
Yeah.
triple beam, but it was like a 170, and I'm like, this is what normally happens. It's like a 160
Yeah.
to a 180. It never really pans out. It's not as big as what everybody says. So that's what I expected. But I went up there in the beginning of summer in June. I just started scouring the whole around everything in and around that was public, because the rumor was the buck was on and near public. So everything that was public, I was just covering it and covering it, glassing every night, driving the roads every night, just checking and rechecking fields, hanging cameras, and for an entire month and a half. Don't get me wrong, I found good bucks, and so I was like, "Hey, it's not a waste of my time." I found like 3, 4 other shooters I could chase.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, worth my time, I guess, because it's quite a bit of a drive from my house. Um, and then finally, after a month and a half of just covering everything, I mean, I did at least, I know, like 10,000 miles on my car looking for this buck.
Jeez.
Just between that and then once before season, I put 15,000 miles on my car, just driving back and forth every day, and then driving around, and then driving to access different areas, and insane. And uh, finally, about mid-July, I was rolling up the road. I've been down 90 times before, and I'm rolling up it, and I'm talking to somebody on the in the car, and as I'm coming up, there's like this little saddle when you get to the top of the hill where you can peek down into this cut beans at. And I pull up there, and I know that like I want to glass into that, and I'm rolling pretty slow, and I stop, and I get out, and I just have the binos, the cameras in the back seat and whatnot, and I was just gonna glass it. 'Cause again, I have looked in this field a million times, but I'm like, hey, but it's almost dark. I'm gonna just double check it, whatever. I get out
Yeah.
and I look in that little saddle at the top of the hill on this, this road, which is the only spot you can particularly see down into this part of the beans at, right? It's kind of hidden from the rest of the road. And I no more than, they don't even get the binos up. I kind of come up over that saddle at the edge of the road and I look into the beans and I just see going away from me, heading toward the middle ditch that's out in the beans. You just see the giant frame trotting, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, gotta go. I found the 200. Click. And I'm looked up. I'm like, you just seen it. And when I looked up, I seen that giant drop for the first time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm running back to the car, trying to hurry up and grab the camera. And that's where the really, really low quality, low light, crappy video at like 500 yards of, I'm like, is this a public 200 where he's in the ditch and he just turns his head like once? That's where that
Yeah.
video came from, was that night. It was mid July sometime. And when he went, he heard the car and was like, not going to deal with this. And knew to go to that ditch and go lay down in that beanfield ditch. And if it wasn't for how big his rack was, I would have never seen him. But laying in that ditch, you could just see the whole frame sticking up out of the ditch. And
Yeah.
he waited until when I left, it was completely dark and he had still not got up out of that ditch to eat in the beans. He knew he had heard the car stop, heard the car shut off, and he went, nope, I'll just wait this guy out. And he just never got up. He just stayed in there, and he's like, I interrupted him feeding, and I had other bucks come out, like some nice 140s and whatnot. They fed around. They did not care. Even some of them could see me up there. They didn't care, but he did. He was like, I'll wait till this guy leaves, and then I'll get up. And that was my very, very first encounter when I was like, I could actually tangibly say, hey, there's actually a 200 here.
And that's the thing is like, especially in Iowa, people think that there's just 200s everywhere, and there probably is in certain areas, in certain farms, but
Private
like on
land.
public land, it's still
Yeah.
hard to, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
don't get me
still
wrong,
hard to
Iowa is
find it.
amazing, and the public land is you know as good as like parts of Illinois and Ohio, and so you're gonna get bigger than average bucks than you would like in Wisconsin or something. But the saying is, the hardest part about killing a 200 is finding a 200.
Yeah.
You have to find that genetic freak to even get to that point. There's a whole lot of 180s and 190s before you even get there. So, that's the hard part, the hardest part, and then actually, then getting on them and making that work. But I couldn't believe I actually truly. I mean, I've seen a couple before. I got some crappy trail camera pictures next to some really great farms at midnight. That you're fence sitting a camera on, hoping something comes off. You guys do that in Iowa
Yeah.
all the time, and I've got those, but they're not huntable bucks. And when I seen this buck, and I pull up the Onyx, I went, "Oh my God, I can hunt a 200." I
Yeah.
was like, "This guy's living, at least a good majority of his time on public." I'm like, "This is a deer I can actually chase." And from right then on, that was my season. I wasn't doing anything else. It was him or nothing, and I was committed, 100%.
Um. Okay. So what season are we in now? What like that? What year would that been, Cody? Is
So
that
that was this year. That was this
okay?
year here. Yep. So
Okay.
he was kind of, like
That
I
would
said,
have been earlier this year, then,
yeah.
right?
That would have been, and that was when I first seen him was mid July. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was,
Middle of
like I said, he was a 200. I got pictures. All the neighbors sent me pictures now, and I've even had the coyote hunter who started the rumor reach out to me, and he actually sent me photos of the buck too that he has. So when he was previous year, the buck had, because you can see he has double drops. So he had like that 4-inch drop in his left side this year. Last year, it was a full 12 inches also. He had
Gee.
two full 12-inch drops, but he didn't have as much mass. And that right side that has all the kickers, he only had two kickers, and he had two kickers on the other side. So he probably scored around the same. He actually might be a little bigger this year. But that's how the coyote hunter knew he would have been a 200, was the two giant double drops. You can see here's the photo at night of the buck, and the two drops are just hanging way down by the buck's shoulder, just massive. It's just crazy.
Oh, dude.
All the neighbors sent me all the photos they had of the buck, and where'd you kill him? He's never here until late season. Everybody always. I found out that like four other hunting shows apparently have leased farms in the area to hunt that deer. Like show guys who hunt for the juries have specifically dedicated time and money to like building plots and like doing special cuts and everything, and they've all come out of the woodwork now like, man, where'd you kill that buck? We never see him until this time frame, and that was all heartbreaking. My whole season was dedicated to this, and I'm like, he was actually on the public, boys.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I think those guys like that do not live in the public land world. Like I think some, and I'm not judging these guys. Don't take it that way, but like those guys that don't live in the public land world or they don't even consider it almost. I don't think like why would I go sit over there whenever I have this farm kind of thing,
Every one of them,
Yeah.
they were mind blown that it was on the public, and they're like, on the public, and they're like, it must have been on like the fence. You were probably by so and so's farm near the fence. I'm like, no, like I wasn't even near the fence.
Yeah.
And where I found the majority of this buck's beds, and during this whole process of like tracking them down, and we'll get into the hunt later, and like when I bumped them and stuff, he avoided the private. This dude
Yeah.
was committed to being on public. He was a hardcore homebody, and he was hardcore on public. And but he knew how to play the game too. From the access routes from the public, he was always set, and he was always waiting for people to be coming from those access. So he just thought he was in this back corner where nobody messed with him. And I mean, he doesn't know it's public, but he's like, I'm in the far back corner. Nobody plays with me back here. The only access is this way, and I'm always monitoring that. And then all these other farms are like, doing all this crazy stuff. And they send me, and I'm not ragging on them, but they all send me photos, and there's 20-foot tower blinds and fake big old mock scrapes and everything. And they're doing big old cuts and double man tree stands and whatnot. I'm like, and all their photos are like 3 a.m. photos. A couple of them are like late. They do have a couple daylight late season photos on food sources, and so that's he was obviously he made mistakes late season. I've always talked about late season can get big bucks killed. They make those mistakes with that food, but everything else was all just complete nighttime. And that buck was like, guys, I am not getting anywhere near that gigantic tower blind in the daylight. That is not happening ever, and so it's wild. So it was mid-July when I first picked them up there, and I started deploying cameras all throughout the area, and then getting an idea where I could place cameras. Like I expected him to relocate somewhat, but I wanted to where I thought he was in the summertime. I made sure I got some cameras in there. I wanted some velvet pictures of him, and then I deployed a bunch of cameras where I believed he would relocate, which truthfully, looking at the terrain and everything, I was pretty confident that the buck was actually just going to shift deeper into the public. He was just going to push back. The habitat supported it, food, water, doe bedding, everything he needed. And I'm like, he's just up front right now. He's just milling around because it sets up a little bit better for summer, but that better habitat's farther back. And it had that depth of cover in places. And I looking in the private, and you can tell looking through, and I could glass into the private. I'm like, these people are doing too much for this buck, and they're the area's kind of sparse, and I'm like, deer don't get this big by running through open fields, especially during shotgun season, running through open
Yeah.
fields and past these tower blinds and open woodlots. I'm like, looking at Onyx, I'm like, man, the only good cover is the public. So we're gonna put cameras back in there deep and expect him to push back. And the first time I picked him up on camera was August 1st. I have 50 pictures of him. He come in, and I had actually the day before, 2 days before that, I had gone in and hung a camera, and I bumped what I thought was him. It was either two deer equally jumping at the same time, running away from me. I could just see the horns come over the tip of the willows, or it was just one big one. And I'm like, probably one big one. And so I marked that bed, and I went in and hung that camera that I got him on August 1st. And then I had gone back in on August 1st. So that was the end of July. I'd gone back in on August 1st that day. And I wanted to check out the stuff little closer to the road, see if it was overlooked, whatnot. And I had pushed him. I had heard that I'd pushed deer in that little bedding pocket. And I was like, you know what? Just in case, I don't want to push him too far and blow him out past my camera. I want him to naturally leave out that back door where I have the camera. So I was like, I'll stop scouting and hanging cameras over here, and I'll go back the way I came, which was a pain in the butt. I could have gone out the front and been a lot easier, but I think I'll go all the way back. So I went all the way back, and it was no more. I was getting up to the car right at last light, and he's walking out that back door and walks right underneath the camera. And I got like 50 photos of him, and I had hung the camera like the other day so he could smell me. So I had 50 photos of him like smelling everything, and you could tell he was just like,
What the heck?
he's like, who who's here? Like nobody's been here. Nobody's played with me, at least in this pocket before. And he was leery, but I got a ton of photos of him, and I think he was looking for a trail camera because you can see he's doing like 360s standing there looking at every tree, and the camera, 13 feet in the air, and he never looked up at it.
Jeez. Hey, that's the importance of what you got behind your head there, the good sit mobile.
Yep.
Camera.
I love the
camera mount.
me and Brian Rogers are good buddies, and I obviously run his good sit mobile mounts, and obviously I'm here filming him in Illinois right now. So
yeah.
Trying to get in on this November rut action.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked out those camera mounts, they're a must-have for public land hunting at least. Okay, keep going, Cody. What happened next?
Yeah. So as August rolls through, and I had picked him up and I had bumped him out of that front bedding, he didn't like it, obviously, as you could tell, or you would imagine. I figured that he would, after some time, be okay with that, and it wouldn't be such a big issue. But he never popped back up in that front bedding pocket after that. Those pictures were the last time he was in that front bedding pocket, which was the closest stuff to the road. And so all of August, he ghosted me. I couldn't see him if I paid. I could not find him. And come to find out through talking to other people, when I bumped him out of there, he come in for summer range. He relocated a mile away. He went in an entire mile away. He was actually on public. So when I seen him, he was public, private mix right on the border, but it's because the private had the beans. So he was coming out of the public, feeding in the beans, going back in, back and forth. Where he relocated, he just went deep public. He went through his rut range in his fall range and actually deeper into the public. And I've heard from a couple people that they saw him out there in August. So I completely lost him in August. Kept looking, could not find him. Hung more cameras, still couldn't pick him up. And one time, mid-September, I was driving down the same road again, and at the far, far, far back of that private bean field, which butts up to public back there, it's like 700 yards or something. I don't even have a glassing binos. I just, right at last light, I see something step out, which is near the edge of where I thought his fall range would be, because it starts to get real thick back up into that public as it tapers back in.
When you say these different ranges, are you like guessing at this point on where he's been, or just from the previous year?
This is from the information that I was given now that I've killed him. So where,
okay, gotcha.
So where he was in, like when I seen him and had the pictures in August, the front up front, I would say I call it up front, up the road. After I had bumped him those two times and pushed him out, and he could smell me where I set the camera, he moved, like I said, a mile or just over a mile. He went into public, and there's some public ag fields back there, and he moved all the way back there. And I only know that because one of the friends of the coyote hunter saw him. They were out there, I think they were doing predator hunting, or they were doing something, and they saw him come out of an island pocket. And so that was mid August. So me pushed him a mile away in the summertime. Where you'd think that they wouldn't care, but I should have known that because he jumped into that ditch just hearing my car come up the road and wouldn't move.
Yeah.
So he pushed off that whole mile, and I didn't see him again until mid-September. And mid-September, at the very back of that bean field, which is 500 yards from where I initially saw him coming out of the public, going into the bean field, right all the way back there at last light, I got a glimpse of knowing the area now. He's the only Mondo out there. So I was like, is there two Mondos out here or is it him? I caught one glimpse right at last light. Couldn't even, the camera wouldn't even zoom that far. And I just look, I pulled up and I pulled up the binos and I was like, had to be him. And I had like 3 minutes of him milling around in the beans. He only pulled his head up like twice. I'm like, man, that just had to be him. And then he just right back in. And so that kind of confirmed that, yep, this is probably his rut range back there. That's his fall range back there. And that would be his, far edge, his close edge now. And he's there in deeper back. And I had already had cameras back in there at this point. So I thought I had enough cameras back in there, but I did not. I absolutely did not. And we'll get into that in a second. But this buck was a freaking ghost. Absolute ghost. It's like the only way to actually see this buck was to lay eyes on him. The velvet pictures are the only pictures I have of this buck ever. And some neighbors have a couple sporadic photos, all like 3 a.m, nighttime stuff, way up on private and different stuff. But all that stuff's from last year. Nobody else has a photo of this buck from this year. Not another person. So
Not a Hawthorne picture of
even the yote hunter that hunts at nighttime and hunts around the area and does all that, he didn't even see the buck this year. So that buck, and what everybody says from their aging, whether it's true or not, they aged him at 4 last year. So he was either a
it.
massive 4 or still a massive 5, but he was either 5 this year or 6. So one of those two. The point is that he became real wise in 1 year that he's like, we just need to avoid anything that's people. If it's
Yeah,
people,
dude, and that's me and Paul Pachura last week talked about how like we were specifically talking about public land. It probably is true for private too, but like how deer care about cameras, like especially the big ones. Like there's
oh,
always exceptions,
just
but it's
just
like,
wait,
dude, if
just
you
wait
think that
till
them
you
deer aren't
hear.
on the trail cameras, you're wrong.
Just wait till you hear. Like and that'll be almost the next part here. And
Okay, go ahead.
we'll just start getting into it because it's. I almost, I'm a huge trail camera guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I almost have to rethink my trail. I got to go back to about 5 podcasts now and maybe take my foot out of my mouth. So, man, so yeah, we're rolling into. Like I said, I seen him. What I thought was him in September, and I'm like, perfect. I have cameras over there, and I have cameras deeper. And like I said, I thought I went all in with my cameras on them. I didn't go put 30 cameras out. I had 8. I had 8 cameras off of a really big area for them. And my plan was predominantly that I was going to glass the buck. And because just the way it sets up, and like I have told you, it's kind of a sparse cover area. The public holds the most cover. Basically, I was like, hey, I'm going to sit some of these hilltops through early October, and I'll glass the buck, and I'll watch them walk in a creek or a waterway or an edge of a field somewhere or something, and that'll give me an idea of where to hunt this buck at. And so that's what I started doing. October comes in, I'd never seen him again to the end of September, and guys don't realize I was up there, during the summer. I spent 3 to 5 nights a week up there glassing for this buck, looking, hanging cameras, and then come October 1st, I missed maybe 2 days. I think I missed like it was the third and the fifth because I had stuff I had to do, like personal stuff that had to be taken care of that I had to miss. I had to miss hunts, evening hunts for. But every day for October until I picked him back up, which we'll get into that in a second. But that wasn't until the 20th of October when I re-picked him back up. Every day I was out there glassing, observation sits, doing something, hanging cameras midday, just trying to find this buck, pick him up. I'm like, he has to be here. I seen him in September. I'm like, I'm like, he could go crawl in a ditch somewhere a mile away on private and just be hidden. I'm
Right.
like, but everything told me that a buck doesn't get that big by doing that and then being seen and surviving the shotgun hunters. And I just know the area, and I'm like, the shotgun hunters out here. Every time I drive through this area, and I've wrote this area off for years because every time I drive through, especially during shotgun season, there's 15 cars in these parking lots, and
People
everybody out
everywhere.
getting shotguns to go push these areas because it's so pushable. So I'm like, man, this, there's no way this, I ever thought a big one was even out there, let alone I'm like, if he's out in any of that's not this particular cover pocket, like this dude would be dead years ago. There's no way. So I was like, I was so confident he had to be in this pocket. And so I just started glassing every night, glassing every night, glassing every night. I was observation sets and hanging cameras. And all the way through October, that's what it was. I had a early muzzleloader guy come out, and he sat right down in one of the pockets I thought the buck could be in on October 18th. And
Oh,
the whole time I'm observation sitting, which come to find out, where I was observation sitting was almost right on top of where the buck was in August. I had found out, so I was
mm.
still in there, and supposedly one of the neighbors, kind of up on the other side, had picked him up, previously. So I was still in the range, but I was kind of on the fringe of the range for that buck. And where that muzzleload guy, the early season muzzleload guy, that was definitely into the range. And so I'm sitting there all night, like watching, like, I'm like, I don't wish bad about anybody, but I'm just like, I wonder if, I'm waiting to see a wall of tine
What are we
stand up
gonna
out
get
of
him?
the CRP willow thickets, and the guy just boom, and never did. Nothing ever popped up. And I was kind of, again, I hate to say this, but part of me was just like, okay, okay, hunt's still on, the hunt's still on,
Yeah.
and I never saw him those times, and finally, I got to say that I'm really good friends with Brian Rogers and Gary Gruno, and both those guys I would marco them every day, every single day. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I should pull off. Maybe I should go hunt something else, man. This buck's a ghost. I got no pictures of him. He could be anywhere. Who knows? And both of them were just like, we would kill to have an opportunity at a 200 on public. So if you don't spend your whole season every day out there, we're going to murder you. So every day they're just like, shut up and go back out there. So a little bit of tough love, but they really kept pushing me to stay on them and stay on them and just keep trying. And they're like, just trust yourself. They're like, just trust yourself. You have an idea, just get out there. If you believe he's there, just keep looking and looking and looking. And finally, on October 20th, I was like, man, I'm so frustrated. I'm like, I should have got a 3 a.m. photo of this buck somewhere. I'm like, come on. I'm like, I'm gonna go move some cameras. We'll move him around. Like maybe he's just doing some stuff that's kind of sneaky. I'm not predicting it, and I mean that makes sense. He's probably just outsmarting me. I'm moving some cameras around, and I get down by that CRP pocket, that first one I was telling you the guy muzzleload hunted. And I'm like, this is where I'm like, man, if I was this buck, this is exactly where I would be. Man, I'm right here. This just sets up. It's the best depth of cover in the area, and there's not a lot, but this is what works. He could be here on multiple winds. Like this is where I would be, man. I'm like, man, and like the thermals work there too. There's like an old like little ditch in there, and I'm like, I'd be right here, and there's like this old single tree out in this CRP brushy stuff, and I'm like, man, I'd be like, that's my shade tree, and if I was a big deer, this is where I'd be, and I had a camera 40 yards, legitimately 40 yards from that solo tree, just in some willow pockets, just kind of working an edge. And as I'm walking in, I'm like, oh man, there's a ton of fresh sign in here that wasn't here before. Wow. And I'm walking and there's some big scrapes and stuff. I'm like, man, is there another mature buck in here that I don't know about? And I'm like, because the big guy's not in here. I have two cameras in that pocket, both directed right at where I thought this buck would be. And I'm like, man, it must be another big buck in here that I haven't picked up yet. Well, it's kind of exciting, and I'm sitting there and I'm pulling the camera off the tree and I'm putting it on my back and all right. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to cut through by that shade tree. And because I'm going to follow that ditch line, it's a little less thick. I'm going to follow that little ditch line up, and that'll take me across over to the other bedding pockets on the other side that I'll start poking around in. And I'm like, he might be over there. He could be over there, And I take about 4 steps, and all of a sudden he stands up from right there in front of me, right 40 yards from my camera, in the CRP, 10 yards off the shade tree. He stands up just away from me, and I got it on my GoPro. I'm like pulling the GoPro on, I'm clicking it on and tracking him, and he's going through the CRP real thickets, and I was just like, oh my god, he's been here the whole time. And
Yeah, that's
what's
crazy.
insane is I had hunted I had hunted that little pocket 3 times through October, and I had put a morning hunt in there October 17th. I threw a morning hunt in there, expecting maybe to catch him coming back to bed. And that stand that I had set up was 50 yards, not set up, but like the tree that I had gone and sat in
Yeah.
was 50 yards, 50 yards away. And the doe that I seen that night, I seen that and a little spike come out. Like they walked right there. So if that buck was there, he was 50, maybe 45 yards from me and just didn't move that morning. That's just that morning. It just didn't move. I mean, he might have let me come in and set up. I don't know, and then just let me dip. And honestly, when we get into more of the story, he probably did that. This buck, he was very
Gee.
confident in his beds. He knew unless you basically walked on him, he would just let you walk by him. He would.
Well, why wouldn't you be confident? I mean, look what he was. I mean, he was a master of his surroundings for sure.
That's yeah, and we'll get into the whole situation, but
Okay, what day was this then, Cody?
when I bumped him was the 20th of October.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So he was so confident in that, and then anyway, so I watched him bound off, and I'm like, well, now we got a game plan for tonight's hunt, and
Yeah.
I figured he might try to loop back, because he was kind of bounded off toward another little bedding pocket. But I thought he'd go that way and either hold up, because when he got up to the other bedding pocket, he didn't quite know what it was. He stopped and looked back as 100 yards back, kind of looked back, and he just flicked his tail and just kind of walked off. I'm like, you're that confident, bro? You dang, man. I'm like, okay. He apparently to him he was just like, not a threat.
Yeah.
um,
Well, he probably did. You have the wind all right and everything?
yeah, yeah. I'd
Or
come
maybe he just didn't know. Maybe he didn't know what you were or something.
that's so there's a lot of pheasant hunters in this area. So I'm almost
Ah,
curious
okay.
if he equated it to a pheasant hunter, and he's just kind of like,
Gotcha.
maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Yeah. So he just I knew in that moment when he looked back like that, I was like, this buck's gonna play the game with me. I'm like he's like he likes his areas. He's gonna play the game with me. So I thought he was gonna circle back to bed that night, and I wasn't gonna try to do a bump and dump. But what I wanted to do was get on the edge of food between his back trail back into that bedding pocket and kind of where he went. So I went all the way back up to my car, got all my gear, went all the way back in, and I sat on the ground that night this is October 20th. I sat on the ground kind of on this point where it goes across to these oxbows on the other side of this like willow pocket stuff. There's a couple creeks in there, and the creeks in the river system are super thick with like thick stem count willows. And then there was pocketed stuff more along some of these stripped cornfields, which had just been cut on the 18th. That was more like CRP open grass with sporadic willows. So that's where I originally bumped him. But I thought he was going to maybe go up, hook, get near the river, the creek system by the oxbows, and then try to come back in because that was the smallest point in the field. So I go over there and I set up and I'm in the couple corn rows that they leave up, just sitting on the edge, and it's getting nighttime, it's getting dark, and I haven't seen just some does and whatnot. And I look up, and in the corner that creek system that comes down into that CRP stuff that splits two fields, and that's kind of thick. There's some like some willows in there and some goldenrod, a lot of goldenrod, that high stem count goldenrod in there that goes down that pretty thick little ditch line that splits the fields there, and that goes straight, I mean, directly back in to legitimately right into the tree, next to the tree that he bedded in. And I look up, and coming out of the corner from the other bedding pocket, the one that I was going to go to before I bumped him, I look up and he's standing in the corner of the field. And I'm like, oh man, it is too far to shoot. I'm with a bow. This is like 100, 150 yards. And he's with some does, and he's kind of pushing the does around, and he's pushing this little buck around over there. And I have footage of all this too, and you can hear me in the camera. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
he's just while Italians walking, I'm like, oh god, and so he's working his way down that edge, and it's right at last light, and I see him he's out there, he's milling around with the does, and like I said, last light, just watch him lay down out there. I got it on camera too. He just lays down and just starts eating. I'm like, what is this, man? And so my thoughts were that he's going to go back into that bedding pocket. That's what he wanted to do. And so the 21st, there was, let me rephrase that. When I seen him lay down, there was a willow bush right there. There's no trees on this entire ditch line. I mean, it's just like goldenrod, willows,
Yeah.
and nothing else. And there was a solo little bush tree. I mean, things this big, and he laid down like in front of that, like 40 yards. And so I was like, that's the spot right there. We're gonna try that. He's gonna go back into this bedding and he's gonna walk that, get in the thermals. He's gonna walk that ditch up and just come from where I bumped him originally. And he's gonna come up and out, and he's gonna walk right by that bush. And that bush is closer to that side than it was the other side that he come from. So the next day, I got the wind for it, and I go over there and I crawl up into that bush, and I had the little saddle platform, so I'm like 3-4 feet off the ground, just enough to see over the goldenrod into the edge of the field. Because like I said, it was a really thick ditch.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there and see, I seen some deer, and I can look back into that CRP stuff and that where he originally was bedded up at, and it's last light again, last 20-30 minutes, and I look over and I'm glassing the CRP. So this is the 21st. I'm glassing the CRP, and I get about halfway down of him going out the trail that I had went in on the 20th, coming from the parking lot. There's other ag up there too, and I just see the wall of tines just walking through the CRP going that way. So he's not coming my way. He's going another
Jeez,
direction out the other back door. And I'm like, you son of a gun, like dang it. So
man.
I'm like, screw it. I'm grab the GoPro and I grab my bow and I lower it down right quick. And I get down and I'm trying to scurry along the edge and get to where I think he's going to pop out in the corner of this other cornfield at. And I get all the way over there and I sit down and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And he probably heard me coming from 10 miles away. I don't know. He never come out. I was like, I got there and I'm like, this was dumb. I probably blew this deer out 15 minutes ago trying to run across an open cornfield, to get over here and to set up on the ground. And yeah, he never come out. And I got that on footage too. And me running around like a madman trying to cut him off, and that didn't work out that night. And so but now I'm like, man, he's bedding in this CRP, right? I was like, man, maybe this is like his only bed. Maybe he just flip flops, so he's in here. So it's like, that was the 21st going into the 22nd. I was like, I'm gonna bed hunt him in the morning. All right, I know a tree right where I can bed hunt him. I'm gonna go in there. I didn't sleep at all that night. I legitimately, by the time I got home, I was so excited and so confident that he was going to be in that bed or come back to that bed. I didn't sleep an ounce, not a bit, because and I had to wake
I've
up
been there.
extra.
I've been there.
Yeah, and I had to wake up extra early because it's a long drive. So I had to get up pretty early to go up to go get him, so by the time the alarm goes off at like 2:30, I was just like, I had been laying there all night, and I'm like, let's grab another energy drink. Let's go. And I took a scoop of pre-workout and like I had 2 energy drinks and I'm sitting there. I called my stepfather because I have nothing else to do on the drive up, and he's always up at that time. He's a night owl, and he's like, going after that big one, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, yeah. He goes, you haven't slept, have you? I'm like, no. I'm like, he's like, yeah. Oh yeah, I can tell. I'm like, oh okay. I go in there and I get all set up in the morning, and I think I'm the sneakiest ever, and I'm sitting there and I don't see anything. Nothing. Not a bit. There's nothing. Nothing. He was not there. He wasn't in the bed. He didn't show. Like, dang it, man. And so, like I said, this is the 22nd. Now we're rolling into the evening hunt for the 22nd now, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna hunt him on. I still hadn't hunted him on the other side where he had been coming out, but I'm like, I'm gonna hunt up front for him and see what I see. And I hunted up front for him that night, and I seen a really nice buck. I mean, I don't have video of it all. I'm gonna have all this in one big hunt together, like a nice 138 point, a good buck, just not
Yeah.
the buck I wanted. And that was closer to where I had him in the summertime. So I was almost like falling back on old info. I'm like, maybe he's back there. Because again, this buck is a ghost. I never got a hard horn picture of this deer. Yet through this whole story, every time I've encountered this buck, he was within 40 yards of one of my cameras. It's just this
Yeah.
deer. and I didn't see this, but you could just tell the way he was moving. He'd be like right down the trail, go right to a camera, get within 40 yards, and go, and then go right around and keep going. I'm like, how do you even know? And some of them were 12 feet in the air. I'm like, what? You got like an antenna radar? You can hear the ping of the camera or something. Some of them were cell cams. I'm like, are your horns pinging it like a radar? Like, oh, there it is. Let's go around. Like, what is happening?
Something happens, I think.
Yeah, just crazy. So that was the evening of the 23rd, and so now we're rolling into the 24th now. And I had gone. I went back out there and I morning hunted that bed again. He didn't show. I passed some really nice bucks on the 24th. Really nice buck. I had like a low 140s come in and come into that bedding area, and even like a 130s 10 come into that bedding area. And my first thought was when they come in, which usually I would have smoked the 140. It would have been
Yeah.
toasted, absolutely toasted. And I looked at him at daybreak and I went, boy, is it your lucky day, man. Oh, man.
That's hilarious.
I'm like, man, talk about luck for him. But then that 130s come in, and I sat there and I went, my boy ain't in here. He would never let these guys come in.
Right.
And I'm like, dang it. So evening hunt rolls around, and I did an observation sit, and I don't even know, 400, 500 yards away, last light, coming out of that other corner again, that willow corner that he come out from when I bumped him the one night. I got it on camera. All you see is just this blob of a rack. And I'm like, that has to be him. Comes out of that corner again. Like, okay, so we need to be hunting that corner. He's over there now, and I should have known because the wind shifted. We went from north winds to south winds. And it just sets up. There's a Southwind Oxbow over there. So Northwind, he's in the CRP. The Southwind, he's over there. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go hunt that bush again because he didn't see me in that bush originally. And I've seen him now walk by it twice. So 2 nights now in a 4-day period, this buck has walked by this bush. I'm like, we need to go hunt that bush. So rolling into the 25th. And this is where it gets real interesting.
So we're at the 25th.
Yeah,
Okay.
25th. So we're rolling into the 25th. And I go out for the evening. I didn't hunt the morning hunt that night. I was like, I'm just going to hunt the evening hunt. I know where he's at. So I actually glassed the fields. If I wasn't hunting morning hunts, I was driving the glass in the fields hoping to get eyes on him. Never was. This guy was leaving the fields long before. I've seen every other buck and every other deer in that area that I have on camera besides that guy. So he's long gone by the time daylight ever comes up, And so going into the 25th evening hunt, I crawl into that bush again, and I'm set up a little bit, and I'm sitting there, and I'm all right, and it's kind of odd because I'm on the edge of a cornfield, but I'm like, dude, he's come out here, like I said a couple times now. I'm like, he feels real comfortable coming out because the bedding is close. I'm within 100 yards of that bedding. It's the way this area sets up without too much information given away is it's really thick bedding with like the CRP and the oxbows, and it immediately goes to like ag fields, like
Okay.
huntable public ag fields. That's just there's no transition period. There's no like timber or anything. It's just immediate. Like it's what the farmer couldn't get the equipment into, which is thick and nasty, and then immediate ag. So they don't have gigantic swaths that they can come out of bedding pockets and then roll into timber and then
there's no staging really.
Yeah. So their staging is the edge of the field. That's where they stage. Is they get to the edge and they just mill on the edge real tight for a while, and then they push out. So I'm sitting there, and it's an hour before sunset. It's not even sunset. It's an hour before sunset, and I had gotten in way early, hours before dark. And I'm just so excited to be out there, and I'm sitting there, and I look over, and there's some does. Okay. They start acting squirrely. They're looking back, and they're looking back, and they're looking back, and I'm instantly like, turn the camera. Okay, what's going out? And then right out of the willows, there's like a little old farmer 2-track right there. So he must have come out of that, hit the 2-track, and then come into the corner. Because coming off the 2-track right there, all of a sudden you just see him come walking out. Right, broad daylight. And this is where like we'll get into it, but this is where I really hate that I couldn't fully end it on the 25th because it would have been the most magical unrealistic public land hunting film experience of anybody's lifetime. Because this is, like I said, an hour before sunset, so an hour and a half,
In the field.
and there's a freaking public land 120 yards from me, sitting there playing with those. And I have some of the footage I sent you where he's standing
Yep.
there, just turning. He is looking. He's eating corn. I mean, I have 40 minutes of footage of this deer just milling around there. And finally, he bumps the does off, and they actually run out behind me and go into the other ag field. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that, because he's going to go out and get downwind. And for whatever reason, he just decides. He actually started to go that way, and then he goes, nah. And I think it's because that's gigantic, really, really, really open out there. He goes, nah,
Gotcha.
I'm going to work down this thick ditch line edge, like he had been doing. And so, like I said, I got 40 minutes of footage of him just slowly working his way down that edge. He's eating. I got footage of him like trying to eat whole corn cobs at like 45 yards. Perfect 4K, broad daylight footage. This 200 is just sitting there, just munching on food, and he's looking around, and I'm sitting there like the whole time. The bush has to be just like, I'm confident that he probably noticed the bush shaking when he first come out, and he just thought because it was so consistent the whole time, had to be wind. It was just wind. The whole bush was moving the whole time because of wind.
You're just shaking the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just you're sitting there and, like, the whole bush the whole time, and guys already know, especially anybody who watches the channel, I'm not a great shot, and on top of not being a great shot, uh when big deer get in front of me, and this is the thing, guys can rag on me all they want. But if I ever lose the feeling and the excitement of hunting deer in general, but especially big deer, I say I'll quit. There's no point.
Yeah.
Like, I love it so much. It means so much to me. So I'm sitting there and I'm just like trying not to hyperventilate, like calm down. And I have 40
Yeah.
minutes of footage of this deer, and finally, he decides he's going to walk in, and he's going to come by me. And he comes in, and I had two openings. I could have had one at 18 perfectly clear, and then I had one at 20, like 25. And there was just a couple little like sticks in the way, but from my perspective with the bow, it was wide open. For the camera, there's a couple things, but he's wide open at 25. And I'm sorry, but after 40 minutes of watching this, I was like, we're just gonna rip the 25 shot. I'm not gonna wait any
Yeah.
longer for him to make his way past.
That's close enough.
And it's not like a little shooting lane. Like, he would have had to cross like another, for him, like another 30 yards through this brushy stuff, and like, not, he would have had to hook too. So he could have angled off, and I'm like, I'm taking my first clean shot at this buck.
Yeah, 100%.
And we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So I just think you look. All right. So I'm taking my first like clean shot at this buck, and and he gets out in front of me at 25, and then I just stop him with the like a. I didn't want to map at him, and even that,
Yep.
you can see in the video, he turned right at me. His eyes went, and
Whoop.
it just locked up hard. And I'm at full draw. I look down, the camera's on him, and I put it on him. I couldn't put it like just pull perfect center body, just because of the way I was sitting in the saddle. But I kind of get it on him behind the shoulder the best I can there, and he turned his head and put it over his back, looking behind him. And I want to preface that. That's so, instead of like looking straight or just looking at me, he turned completely his head around him, so his neck and everything.
Looking at
He
you
had
that way.
his head over his back, which is just above his vitals. And you can see it in the video and whatnot. The camera's lower, so from my perspective, his chin was at his back level. And I'm sitting there on him, and I'm like, well, it's now or never. And I let her rip, and man, I between one, him hard ducking. It was 25 yards, but he was on hard alert. So he ducked. So he did a couple things. One, he ducked, and he actually turned down and into it, but he turned his head towards me. So his head comes down in a way, but his body goes down and in, and then he ends up going like that. So a really weird, you always think they kind of go up and out and away from you, and he just didn't do that. He like turning into the arrow. Just a really weird turn, and guys can watch that when the video comes out. It's just an odd turn for a buck. Maybe it had to do with his head over his back. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
There might be something out there where people are like screaming right now, like, you should know not to do that. Well, I didn't. I don't know. So between that and him dropping a little bit, and this is not his fault. This is my fault. I pulled I pulled a bad shot, and so I'm 7 inches high. Probably what would have happened if he had, if he turned down in the way normally or had his head facing the other way and did what a normal deer do, I probably would have backstrapped him. It would have been a story about, either clean
Yeah.
missing a 200, backstrapping him. Maybe if I got really lucky, I would have hit him in the spine or something. And I say lucky, a way of,
Right. I get it. I get it.
um,
You would have got
yeah. But because he had his head over his back and he did that, turning his head down and in, and then moving his body through the kill zone. And I know I'm going to get a ton of hate for it, but I did my best and hopefully redeemed myself with the situation here. The arrow, no joke, caught the buck in the face. And I'm not proud of it. It caught him in the face. It didn't go clean through. It actually went down his face more because he turned into it. So it went into his face. I've already got the buck to the taxidermist, so into his face, not into his mouth, but through its mid face, through the bottom of his nasal cavity, left side, down the nasal cavity, out the back right side, and then it actually went under his back right eye and almost into the back part of the skull, coming out the back of the head. You got
it.
7.5 inches of arrow penetration on the buck. So, I mean, great penetration. I'm really surprised at 54 pounds that it went all the way through like that.
Um,
Just
Cody, did you change something on your mic or anything?
no. Is it
Huh.
got get worse here?
Yeah, it sounds like you're like a robot now.
So maybe just having some connection issues here.
I don't think so. The video looks good.
I didn't change nothing here. We're holding tight. Is it still bad? You want me to? Here,
Well, it'll probably be fine. And yeah, try that.
how's that?
Better. Perfect again.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Technology.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got like 7.5 inches of penetration. Really surprised for only pulling 54 pounds. How deep it went. At the time, I didn't know that. All I knew at the time was I don't have lighted knocks. I just can't afford them. And we're going to get into semantics at the end of all this of why certain decisions were made about certain things during this process. I'll touch on that so people understand and I can hopefully get a little sympathy here. But what little bit I might hopefully deserve, I hope. But anyway, so he, it went in straight in, and like I said, almost come out the back other side. I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that I hit him. I'm like, man, I whacked him. I didn't think I smoked him or something, but I just heard, all you heard was, oh, whack! And I'm like, I don't know what I hit, but I wasn't aiming for, at the time,
Yeah, his nose, yeah.
I'm aiming for his body, so I'm like, maybe I shoulder shot him or something, the leg hit him, but like I thought maybe still vital area. I'm like, I don't know how you possibly miss that high with, even with the turn and everything. Like it had nothing in my mind of where I would hit him, is where I hit him. And so all I see is running off, and I'm getting the camera on him, and I'm all shaky, and I'm like, I see him kind of going out there, and he's kind of doing some weird stuff. He's kind of going left, going right, and then a little stumbling and stuff. And so I'm thinking, maybe not the greatest shot, but he's going to die. And so I'm just like, go down, go down, go down. Yeah, come on, come on. And it's like, okay, he gets to 200 yards out there. All right, go down, go down. He gets to 300 yards, and he cuts back, and he's going back toward the wheel. Okay, go down. What's happening here? What's going? And he's like 400 yards out there, and he stops and he turns towards me, or not towards me, but broadside, and you just see my orange fletching go like that off in front, about 1.5 feet out in front of his nose, just like a flag, just like, ooh. And I'm like,
oh,
like where did I hit him? You can hear it like I'm like, what? And then he turns and he goes about another 100 yards and he's like coughing at the ground and stuff. I'm like, there's no way. I thought maybe like in the neck or something, or maybe there's like a weird chest angle. I hit a branch or something. I'm like, what? And he gets at the edge of the field at 500 yards, and he stops and looks back at me. You can just see it's stuck into his face. I'm like, I hit him in the effing face. What? What? Oh, what is happening? I couldn't believe.
Well, I also want to say this: like, if anybody criticizes you about that, they are just being internet trolls. Like, this stuff happens. It absolutely happens.
It was a little bit of a bad shot, and I'm not blaming equipment, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but some stuff that I didn't test that, has to do with financial reasons, and I just taking stuff, people's word for stuff, manufacturer's word for stuff, and again, we'll talk about all that.
All right.
But just man, it's just a freak thing. Like the way he downed and turned, I've never seen a deer quite do that
Yeah.
situation.
So he almost instead of ducking and going away, he like ducked towards the arrow.
Yeah,
Essentially, is what
that's
I'm hearing.
exactly.
Yeah.
He just like ducked towards it with his head, and then ran his body to me and then away. Just the weirdest. Just the weird, and then when he ran out in front of me, he did all that, and then went to looked like he was going to run back the way he did. Then he only made it 5 yards, and he's already turning to go back out in front of me. I mean, like what deer? I don't. What deer ducks towards you down towards 360s and then goes back? I have no clue. I'm like that makes zero sense. But anyway, so that's just a freak thing with a bad coupled with a bad shot, and he got out there and he got to that edge, and I realized it was in his face. I have no. I don't even understand how that's a thing. But he was acting weird. He had been zigzagging in the field, doing some like weird stumbling stuff. I'm like, man, maybe I hit something more important in there. And he was kind of coughing. You can see him put his head down. He coughed at the edge of the field, so there's blood coming out of his mouth. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then he jumps into the willows and you hear the arrow on the camera break. It snap. Like, dang, I'm obviously giving him overnight, but I'm pissed, dude. I got the video of it. I'm like punching the tree and like breaking a branch. I'm like, what? I can't believe this. Like, I get the most beautiful, perfect shot in the world and all the footage, and then this happens. I'm like, only me, only I could do that. Only I could F this up that bad, And
Yeah.
I'm like, man. And so I ended up calling a bunch of people, called dog trackers and everything. I'm like, what do we do? And everybody was just like, I don't know, man. Like, he's not going to die right now. And unless you hit that throat, he would have died out in the field. So
Yeah.
you didn't hit that. They're like, the dog guys were like, he'll probably die from infection since it's to the face. So literally, I was told 3 weeks to a month and a half, and we'll come out and we'll just carcass win the area. And I'm like, I don't want to do. I called everybody, and I got told by everybody, yeah, we're not. Sorry, dude. Okay, so rolling into the 26th, I was told just keep hunting them, just keep hunting them. So I throw a morning hunt over the CRP bed that he was in before. Like maybe he wanted because he was trying to go back in there that night. Like maybe he wants to go in there and lay up. He's really hurting. I don't see him, and I don't get him on any of my cameras, which doesn't mean anything because I never got him on any of my cameras in the fall. But
Yeah.
I picked up all his other bucks on camera, and so at the afternoon, I go over to the edge of the field where I last seen him go in. I found my arrow. That's how I was like, oh man, I got like 7 inches of penetration. That's wild. And no sooner did I found my arrow and I looked down, and there is blood everywhere. I mean, there's so much blood I couldn't believe. There's 2 foot by 2 foot swaths of blood. And right then I was like, man, I'm going to find this buck. He's going to be dead right up here. And I went, okay, yeah, I'm not a great shot. I'm like, his thing's dead right up here, right? Going up to the river. He's going to be dead right at the bank. I'm like, okay, it's 100, 150 yards to the river. And easiest blood trail you could imagine. The only reason it took me time to walk is because I was just in case he was still alive. I wanted to sneak up there. So I'm sneaking real quiet and I'm glassing. I'm sneaking. I'm glassing. It is just swathed with blood. Like it was legitimately, you couldn't go a foot to 2 foot without paper plate sized areas where blood's pooled in leaves all the way to, like I said, 2 foot by 2 foot swaths of just pooled blood. The most blood I've ever seen from a deer. And anything in between was like one blood spray. Crazy, just the most insane amount of blood. So I work my way up to the river. I get all the way out of there, and I poke my head down the bank, and he's not there. Man, okay. And I'm looking down the river. I'm like, is he in the water dead? And luckily it's a low river, so I'm looking all the way down to both ends, and I don't see anything. Well, he had to cross, so I go over to the other side of the river, and I come down the bank, and the wind's kind of going down the river that day. And I go down the bank and I pick up blood. Again, it's as good. It must have clouded a little bit or something because it wasn't swathed anymore. I almost wonder if that night all those piles for 100 yards. I wonder if he'd laid down and he would pile blood. they'd get up and go 2 or 3 feet and then just lay down a pile of blood. And he just did that over and over. That's almost why I'm curious, because once he got across the river, where it was obvious he was walking, it was really great. I mean, like I said, like almost lung blood levels great, where you would have multiple drops and sprays, not sprays, but drops everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you can't miss it. And even in the mud, I mean, you just can't. But you could tell it was blood. And so when I went down in there, I'm blowing my wind down the river. So I'm actually walking with the wind at my back, and I'm going down the river, and I get another 150 yards down there, and it takes me a while through the afternoon. I'm being slow because I'm expecting this buck to be alive still. So I keep looking into the riverbanks and looking into the willow pockets, expecting him to be in there bedded, you know, following him. And finally, like I said, I get all the way down to the bend of the river there, about 150 yards, and I find a pile of blood tucked into the willow. So he was bedded there. And when I get there, I realize that his blood's piled, and it started to clot a little bit. There were some clots in it, and there's dirt kicked up right at the edge of the river. And there's only a couple. I found it. It took me an hour for 50 yards to find 3 specks of blood. And
Jeez.
what happened? Did he clot that bad? And I'm kind of putting it together, and I'm talking with like Brian Rogers on Marco, trying to figure stuff out. And I get to the edge of the river right there, and I notice big tracks splayed, and they're far apart. And I'm like, I wind bumped him, is what happened. So when I come down into the river, 150 yards away, he was on that point. I blew my wind into him, and I wind bumped him, and he ran out. And so the specks of blood was him as he was running, and he went up the bank and went back to the other side that he was at before, which, just to say, leads to those oxbows that I thought he was going to come out of from the first time I bumped him. I was on the
Gotcha.
side of that field. So I'm like, that makes sense, though. He's trying to go back into the areas he likes, and he can follow those oxbows and even go back into that CRP pocket bedding, too. So I was like, that makes sense. He's running that way. I'm like, I'm gonna go hunt over there tonight, and I'm gonna see what I see. And Brian Rogers is like, no, go. He's like, go push him, dude. Go push him. Go in there and push him. He's like, he's bled so much, just keep pushing him. Keep on him. Keep on him. I'm like, no, he's probably gonna live. I'm gonna hunt the edge somewhere in here, and he's gonna come out, and maybe I'll get another shot or something like that. He's like, dude, no, go push him. Go into the oxbow and go look. Go into the oxbow, and I didn't do it. So the 26th, I found all that blood that day, and then I ended up hunting over there. Same spot I did before, hunted the edge of the field. Same spot before, and he never comes out. I see all these other bucks, bunch of other deer, like 15 does. He never comes out. So rolls into the 27th. I morning hunt. I hunted way up front in his old summer range, which is like if he went a long ways, he could have got up there. But I was like, I'm thinking that this buck's alive and he's running around still, really, fine. He's gonna be fine. But so I hunt way up front, not there in the morning. I come out for the 20, in the afternoon. I'm like, fine, Brian, I'm going to go look in the oxbow. All right. So I go into that oxbow, and I start looking around, and I no more get up on the bank. And there's just blood everywhere again. I mean, everywhere again. And I'm Mark O'Brien. He's like, I told you, man. He's like, you opened them back up. You should have went and looked. And so I'm milling around in this oxbow, and I'm finding what I can find. And all of a sudden I hear, I'm like, I wonder if that was him. And I go over there, big old pile of blood. Clots in it. Yeah, and he piled through the oxbow, and there's a creek, that so the creek drains into the river, and there's a bunch of oxbows in the creek too. And it's a really windy section of river and creek here. And it's all willow stuff right up against, and then it's, like I said, it's ag and whatnot. And so I'm tracking his blood, and again, when he's running, there's only specks. But I spent a few hours, and I would speck to speck to speck, go another 100 and some, 200 and some yards, and finally he crosses the creek. And guess where he's going? Into another oxbow on the other side. And I was like, all right. And I tell Brian's like, dude, go over there. He's over in the other oxbow. I'm like, no, man, I don't want to push him. And I'm going to go to the other side, and I'll hunt for the evening hunt. I'm like, all right. So I go over there. I hunt my evening hunt on the other side. I don't see him. And so the 28th rolls around, and morning hunt. I don't see him again. I'm hunting the area, and so the 28th, we're going into the 28th now. And I'm like, well, I'll go look in that oxbow now to see if he's in there. I go into that oxbow over there, and the only way to come in is so thick, and it's a tight oxbow. And I come in, and anything in there, it's winded me already. It definitely hears me. I mean, I sound like a freight train trying to push through this stuff. So I'm coming down and in and trying to hook into this oxbow, and I'm sitting there doing interviews and whatnot, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, like again, I'm thinking this oxbow is so tight, anything in here is gone already. So I'm just looking for blood, looking for trying to find something, and I hook all the way around, and I get right to where he come up from across the creek. And I'm like, oh hey, there's blood here. I'm like, he was here for sure, cool. And so I start tracking it, and I get 10 yards into the oxbow that I had just walked 15 yards from the middle of, like, all right, bye. And it's a thick. I mean, like I said, it's so thick in there.
Yeah.
And I'm walking, and all of a sudden I just see this big butt of a deer stand up, and all the willows are getting piled over. And I go up there, and it's this worn to dirt, stinky smelling buck bed. And I'm like, there's blood in it,
Yeah.
That was my boy. I'm like, come on, and I'm like, he let me walk right by him again. I cannot believe him. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I spent the whole afternoon tracking what little bit of blood, and I tracked him about 200 yards, and he went into another oxbow. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stalk into this oxbow now. So I come in with the wind in my face, and I'm sneaking into the oxbow, and I stalked all through it, and he wasn't in there. And I had no more blood in that oxbow. I'm like, dang, it's not in there. And so I'm like looking at the maps, and there's on the other side is an oxbow that I know I've seen other mature bucks come out of. And it's a really good one. It sets up really, really nice. It's really, I mean, I've looked at that before, and I'm like, mature buck beds in there for sure. I've been in there. I'm like, yeah, that's, a good oxbow. I'm like, all right, okay, and like maybe he went into that. That was my thought, was that he went into that. But I just, again, I was not sure that he would just push to the next set of cover and then lock up, stay there. And so this is the 28th. I throw a hunt. He's not near the other side of the creek. Rolling into the 29th now. And so 29th, I actually didn't morning hunt. I drive around Glasson trying to find him. Didn't find him. Didn't see him. Cameras are going off. Deer everywhere. My boy's not around. Can't find him. And finally, I'm like, I'm going to go hunt that oxbow on the other side. It sets up well, and he is just making it from one good oxbow to the other good oxbow, a few hundred yards in this area, and then bedding up. And I'm like, maybe he is hurt more than I thought he was. Maybe he's really not feeling good. And so that night I go in there, and I'm sitting there, and there's a lone tree like 70 yards away. And I'm like, maybe I'll go sit in that tree. I'm like, no, are we trying to look at this deer or trying to kill this deer? And my only option at that point was to go sit on the ground right up against the oxbow where the cover of the oxbow comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, so I'm going to hook down into the wind, and I'm going to walk that edge. And then I'm just going to find the trail that has the best buck sign, because I hadn't been there in a while. I'm going to find the trail that has the best buck sign coming out of the oxbow. That's the one I'm going to hunt. I come around, and I just hook, get to the edge where the oxbow starts, and I look down, and there's an old speck of blood from last night sitting there.
Oh my God.
I'm like, well, I took it as he's in there. I'm like, I didn't bump him this time. So I'm like, he's probably in there. And I was like, if he's not, it's going to be a good hunt. But if he is, then I'm going to be right here, because the oxbow is big, but it's not that big. So if he's in there, he's within 100 yards of me as is. So and like I said, it's super thick. You can't see 10 feet. You can see about 10 yards in at maximum places. It's so thick in there. But I just want to preface that, like, I have no clue. I used to think like there was too thick for big deer. Apparently not for this one, because this dude would
Yeah.
plow through willows like it
Whatever.
was nothing. He did not care at all. He would just mow them down walking through. If he wanted to go somewhere, he was going that way. He did not care what he had to do to go that way. And so I set all my gear up, and I had my GoPro, and I set my main camera up, and I'm sitting there, and I'm right on like I said, right on the edge of this oxbow, and we have this north wind, and I'm sitting there, and it's getting late, and it's probably sunset's coming up. I'm trying to think when. So it's like a half hour before sunset, and I'm sitting there, and I realize, I'm like, if that is blood of him going back in, not going out, which is what I'm hunting for. Because if he's going out, I don't know where he is. I'm hunting him an
Right.
idea that that's blood going back in. Like he's gonna J hook his bed. So if he's J hooking his bed, he's not coming out on this trail. He's on the other side of the oxbow, right? So I need to be on the trails up farther, and you can't just see straight down. The willows kind of come to a point. So I'm on this side of the point, and then it rolls, and I know there's trails on this side of
Got it.
where the willow
Okay.
is. So I'm like, wait, he's gonna come out, and he's gonna come out on that side because he J-hooked his bed. Crap. So I start very, very quietly sneaking my way up. I go about 20 yards, get to that point, and right on that point is a deer trail that goes in, and then there's the two other trails that come out at like a 20 and a 30 in front of me. And I take one step, and all of a sudden I hear something to my right in the middle, right on that point coming out of the oxbow. And I look, in 10 yards away, he's sitting there on that deer trail like he was walking out, and he just happened to have his head against the tree, and he kind of he raked the tree like that. Just not super. He wasn't super aggressive into it. Kind of, and this is how you know he was really hurting. He was really hurting because he okay, and he kind of milling
Mm,
around, and he's kind of looking around, and he nip on something, and he's 10 yards away. And at that point, when he turned and turned, he was looking at me, and I'm looking at him at 10 yards. When he looked back at that tree and went to kind of rake it again, I just turned, and I'm sitting there. I'm just standing. There's like some goldenrod and this tiny CRP grass between me and him at 10 yards, and my wind is just blowing like this in front of him. If I would have
yeah.
taken four more steps, he would have started sucking up my wind and getting it. And so I'm not moving. And this deer for 10, 15 minutes. My main angle camera's back there. I don't have my main angle camera because I was coming up to find a spot and I'm going to go grab it. Thought I had 15-minute time frame still, and so I
Yeah.
just have the GoPro, and I can't even get the GoPro on either. So I'm sitting there and I'm just not moving at 10 yards. And it's right before, you're talking 15 minutes before sunset now. So it's starting to get dark. But the
Yeah.
sun hasn't quite set, and he starts coming directly at me down the trail. And all we have between me and him is this little bit of CRP grass and like one or two goldenrod stems that have some bulbs on them still. And as he's coming down the trail at me, I'm already just my heart's racing. My adrenaline's been pumping for 10 minutes on this stare down as I'm just watching every rack turn of this 200 at 10 yards from me. And he's walking towards me, and he was really slow. It took him 2 to 3 steps just to go a yard. So he's really
Wow.
slow. And I don't know if that's because I think he was just not feeling it. He's obviously trying to recover
Sure.
from everything, and he had lost so much blood, and so he's just not fully feeling it. Probably had a fever. We can talk about that. But when the taxidermist cut him open, he already had infection in his.
Yeah. I'd say his head was hurting pretty bad.
Yeah, well, I probably had a concussion too because I'm getting shot in the.
I'd say he had a headache.
Yeah, I would imagine. So, he's really just kind of slowly lumbering out of this oxbow. He's still being a buck though, doing he's winding everything, doing what he can to make sure he's,
Yeah.
Not just giving himself away. Coming out right at last light still. And as he's coming that 5 yards, it was hilarious because I remember standing there, and I don't know what happened. I've never felt this before, and I felt adrenaline and all this before. I love that feeling. But man, my head felt like it turned into a balloon, and I felt like I started to float off the ground, and my vision started to narrow, and I started to see black coming from the sides, and like my heart started racing. And I felt like an entire hot flash, like somebody just lit me on
Like a
fire.
anxiety attack is
Yeah,
what you were
yeah.
having there,
And I'm
man.
sitting there, and I'm like, "Don't pass out, don't pass out, don't pass." And I'm like breathing, like, and as I did that, and he's looking. I'm like, "Oh, you're breathing, John. You're breathing, John." So I'm trying to not simultaneously pass out. And this deer is at 5 yards from me, looking, and he's just like looking through me. I don't know, just insane. Like you can
Yeah.
tell he's looking through me, not realizing that he's looking at the danger at 5 yards. And I'm like,
Yeah.
breathe, breathe. I don't know. Somehow I managed to just not shake enough for that time frame until he looked away. And as he was doing that, I was like, in that moment before he started taking another step at 5 yards, I was like, God, just turn them for me. I can't draw here. I can't do anything. And I'm not like an ultra religious man, but in that moment, I was, God,
You were.
I come to you in this moment of weakness. Just turn it for me, and for whatever reason, probably my breathing or something, for whatever reason, he decided he was going to turn, and instead of coming right on that trail, he's just going to walk kind of like he was going to do like a half moon around what was just in front of me was just like a two or three little willows, like yay big.
Yeah.
So enough that he's not going to just mow him down unless he has to. But I'm gonna go around those, and there's some goldenrod and some CRP. And when I say it was thick, it was. I mean, there was some cover, but then you could still easily see through this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when he got there, I'm like, this is my only chance, and I just drew the slowest, quietest draw I could ever possibly do, which is still, I'm sure, was not slow and quiet. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, maybe I needed him to have a concussion because he didn't hear it. He didn't even look. He comes and he passes those willows and he still stops at the edge of the field. He has his nose to the edge of the field and he's looking, and there's a couple cornrows. So he's looking through the couple cornrows still. He hasn't even broke the edge of the cover. He'd have to come into that field. He still has the cornrows as cover, and then he would break into like what would be open. So he's still being a big buck as much as he can. And there's some like canary grass in front of him and a couple goldenrods, but I'm full draw. And I'm like, goldenrods and canary grass ain't gonna stop an arrow at 5 yards.
Yeah.
And then they're like that he's in them. I'm like, we're ripping them. I'm like, you can't miss at 5 yards, boys. And whop, and just perfect shot. Center punched him. Right through the vitals. He tears out of there. He goes 45, 50 yards to the other side of the pinch of the field. And I watch his back legs already, but he tries to jump to go into the CRP, which is going into that CRP pocket where all of this started. He was going that way or going to feed into that. And he when he went to do that and kick and make that jump, as he goes in the air, I can already tell it's a half jump. And then when he went to put his front feet down, they were not there for him. And then you just see his butt go right over his head. And I knew that. I mean, you see that, they're done. And you can see that. I'm like, ah! I'm sure every farmer out there just was like, what
someone dying out there?
the heck is going on out in the woods? I'm screaming. I couldn't believe it. Oh, man. I could absolutely not believe what just happened. It all went down. And then I'm like screaming to the GoPro, and I'm like, we got him, boys. We got him. And right in the screaming of that, like it died. So like,
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That comes out. I'm going to be like yelling into the GoPro, and it's going to just end right there. And then the next is me coming up on the buck and stuff. And, I'm a little calmer, but at that point, then I'm just spaced.
Focus, yeah.
So spaced.
Yeah, I get it.
It's just going to be the funniest thing. Screaming it.
Yeah. Dude, what a story, man. Like, what an adventure that was this year. And, like, I think about this a lot. It seems like every time you kill a big one, I was thinking, like, after I shot my buck last night, or Tuesday, I was, like, sitting up there thinking, like, dude, how did it even happen? Like, because there was, like, why, what made me think about right here, and I had strategically thought about it, but I'm just like, dude, what are the odds of it actually working?
Yeah.
And that sounded like for you, that was a month worth of that stuff,
Man, I didn't, from the 25th to when I killed him, killed him. I didn't sleep a drop, man. I was no joke running on like 12 to 1,500 milligrams of caffeine a day, and for guys who don't know, that's like 6 to 8 energy drinks of the big boys, the ones that have all the caffeine. And I'm taking pre-workout scoops, and I couldn't eat, man. I was eating like a bird because I couldn't eat. I'd eat, and my stomach would get upset, and I'd either almost barf or I'd have to go take a quick shit right quick, and I couldn't. Man, I couldn't eat anything. I was told
you were feeling good.
Well, there's still, you can see, like, I'm 30 years old, and my face, I'm just now getting it cleaned up here. My face broke out from stress, acne stress. It was terrible. I couldn't.
Cody aged like 6 years this season.
I feel like I woke up this morning, man, and I think it finally I've had, 6-7 days to let it all set in. I woke up this morning, and I'm just like, everything's cracking and moving. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like, but I'm like feeling a little bit better finally. I'm like, I think it all got out of my system, but man, I definitely think I aged here because I used to wake up and my back didn't hurt, my shoulder didn't hurt, so I definitely gained about 5-6 years for sure. Every day was about a year in my life. Just
like I'd say, I'd say like it's unbelievable how persistent you were with that deer, and kudos for not giving up on. I mean, giving like a lot of guys that hit that deer and just been like, well, crap,
What all the dog trackers told me to do. They just everybody I talked to was just told me kind of that I was screwed. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I got to do everything. Even for 140s, I give the world
Oh yeah.
to chase them down, to find them. I do everything in my power. And with this buck, if I had blood and a direction of travel, we were looking.
Keeping it with
We were
Yeah.
we were looking. And here's something too. I want to say, when I gutted him, all he had for blood left in him was two paper plate size piles with about an inch thick. That's all he had
Yeah.
clotted with blood. That is it. And I double lunged him. And when I double lunged him and I slit him open, that is all that. I mean, just that's it. Barely come out. There was
Much in there.
the gut pile was 4 times the size of the blood. So he had bled so much. And I mean, obviously, I mean, how it's probably hard to clot a face wound. I mean, you can't stick your face in water. You
Yeah.
know, so he had bled so much. You know, you obviously know that he was trying to get into the swing of things in the rut and do everything he could, be a buck, be a deer, but he was hurting. So I'm glad I was finally able to end it for him, and he didn't end up just dying from infection in some ditch. Somebody found him like that or whatnot. I was doing my best to get on him and end his suffering. You know, I'm not proud of the shot. I understand how it looks. And since we're here to touch on that. I had gotten new equipment. I wasn't familiar with it. This is not an excuse, but I got new equipment. I wasn't familiar with it. For guys who don't know, I live off of ramen noodles and legitimately ramen noodles. And I sleep in my freaking car in a lot of public parking places because I can't afford the gas just to go back and forth from home to there. I live in a really crappy apartment. The most expensive thing in my apartment, my 1 bedroom man pad, is my deer mounts. Like that's
Yeah.
it. My deer mounts and then my bow and whatnot. And I had scraped together every dime just to get like these new broadheads and these new arrows and whatnot. And I had shot them with the field points and gotten them accurate, but I hadn't tested them all together. And there's just things that I didn't test and whatnot. And like if you don't give me equipment, I can't buy it. So I have like a bag target. I don't have a block target, so like testing with broadheads isn't something that I could really do. Hey, we have a block target now, by the way, boys. We made sure after the 25th we found money. We found money, and we actually ruined a bag target that night, staying up till 3 a.m. to sight those puppies back in to make sure we were good. And then we found the money. We borrowed some cash, donated some plasma. That's not a joke. And we got ourselves
That was a
a
block
target
target.
now, so we're good to go. So
Yeah, dude, you are as hardcore as they come when it comes to like I'm gonna live this whitetail life,
that's all,
and it's
dude. That's all I
awesome.
want, man. I love chasing. I mean,
It,
it's just
I
like,
guess to give people, you don't have to get into it at all, but like you're ex-military, right?
yeah,
So yeah, you got some stuff coming in from that, and
yep.
and then just chasing whitetails in your YouTube channel and Facebook, and so this will all. I don't know when you'll have the video done, but I'm sure it's going to come on your YouTube channel and all that here in the next while. But so go over and subscribe to get ready for that. This heck of a story.
I hope something comes of it because so YouTube, they just brought that new update out. I don't meet the requirements anymore for monetization.
Oh man, go over and subscribe and watch some videos so you can be.
Yeah, so I'm no longer monetized on YouTube, and Facebook has had me partially demonetized for years now because of hunting content.
Yeah.
So like, dude, I don't make anything from that. Like unless like a sponsor pays me money, I don't make nothing.
Yeah.
So it's just like guys don't realize they think I do this for like the clout and the money into this. I'm like, guys, I legitimately don't make any money off of this, and I carry all my filming gear around and do all this stuff. And then like I said, I like after I get done filming Brian here, I just want to be in the woods for the rut. I want to see some bucks die, So I'm out here filming Brian,
Yeah.
hopefully getting him on one. And then I'm taking the $100 he's giving me for gas, and instead of going home, I'm hoping nothing bad happens, and I'm going to Wisconsin because I still have that open tag, and I'm going to car camp in a parking lot somewhere in Wisconsin and hunt for a week and eat cold canned soup, or I'll get some ramen packets and heat them up in the gas station with hot water, and that dude, it's and I'll have to donate plasma while I'm up there. I'll have to go donate plasma so I get $100 to go home. And I just want to hunt, man, and shoot these deer. That's all I care about. It's like I don't have a wife, I don't have a kid. Like this buck is my kid. That's why I made the joke to Brian. He's like, I got to go to the kids, do the kids tonight. I'm like, I got my kid. He's a taxidermist.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Well,
you got a problem.
you and Johnny Stewart, dude. Johnny Stewart has this pretty funny story about because he's in the East Coast. Whenever he was younger, he he like had an Iowa tag, but he had enough money to get there, but he didn't have enough money to get back. So he just went out there and just stayed out there
you figure
until he scrounged.
you figure it out, man. Like I mean, that's
Yeah.
just you beg and
He
borrow.
took his dog with him because he took his dog with him because he wasn't sure how long he'd have to be gone. And
that's all I mean, that's what I do, man. I would hunt every
yeah,
state possible if I could, if I had the money to do it. I would once I fill a tag, I'd go to another state and I'd hunt. I just don't have the money for tags. Guys will laugh at me. I've had guys reach out to me. Oh man, take photos with my gear, and I'll give you these discount codes and whatnot, and you'll get the VIP and take photos with your buck with my gear and it'll be cool. We'll start a relationship. And I'm like, cool. So is your gear free? Well, it's a VIP code, and it's only
you
like
get
40.
20% off.
They're like, it's only like $40 or something. I'll give you like a 60% off, or I'll give it to you at wholesale 80%. It's like $40. I'm like, $40 is like 2 weeks of groceries for me, bro.
Yeah,
Like $40, I can go with like from like $40. I did the math. It would cost me $12.30 a day to drive home and back to hunt that buck. So like I did the math on the gas exactly to know what I could afford. And when I couldn't afford it, like I just slept out there in the parking lot. Like I
yeah.
just had my pillows and blankets. And you're not supposed to do that in all places, but Iowa doesn't post it. Sometimes I go to like the Casey and whatnot, and park
When
behind
you're
the
poor, you
building.
got to bend the rules,
Yeah,
dude. When you're poor, you got to bend the rules.
so I'd go behind the building, and I'm just like, dude, I'm sitting there. Can you imagine? And I don't have the car camping window things, right? So I'm like in a
Yeah.
parking lot with like a lone light on me at like 3 a.m, not able to sleep, and I'm eating like a cold can of beans in my underwear, and I got blankets in the back of my car, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there like, yeah, this is the life, man. I'm gonna kill this buck.
Oh yeah, I'm living it
I'm
right
like,
now.
I'm like, how do you explain this to like a cop if he pulls up? Like, okay, look, man, not homeless, but like kind of here, and this is
I
what
have
I'm
an
doing.
addiction.
Yeah,
I have a problem, sir. Oh man.
it's definitely a problem. I have made some poor life decisions, like financially, career wise, but you know what? At the end of the day, I get to chase these bucks and shoot some awesome deer, and that's just what I want. Like right now in my life, for the next few, that's what I got going for me, man. And that's what I want, and that's what I would just love to do, and I'll do it till the day I die, as much as I can, as hard as I can.
Dude, that's a good spot to end because we've been on here for an hour and a half. So I appreciate you telling the story on here, man. It's an awesome story. Make sure you go over to Cody's pages and follow him. And yeah, man, on to the next one.
On to the next one.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you later.